Welcome back to Mindful Serenity Yoga with Nancy, and we're going to continue answering questions from the jar. I am on a roll today. This is my fourth question, or my fourth attempt at answering a question. I seem to be free of interruptions, knock on wood. That may change, who knows, in this busy household, but for now it seems to be pretty good. So I'm going to try to steal another opportunity to get a question in there. So I answer a question, somewhat of a spiritual question, within a 10-minute time frame. I do my best to answer such without trying to be anything that I'm not. I am by no means a teacher, a spiritual teacher, or a master, or a guru, any of those things. I'm just a learner like most of you, and this is how I learn, through teaching. And I really encourage you to try the same exercise because I think it's very, very beneficial to all. I'm pulling out a question before I start my timer just to make sure that I can read it. And I'm going to apologize. I tend to look up at my camera and forget and look down because I'm used to looking in the eyes of people and I see my own eyes in there. So, okay, it's a pretty good question. I know I have not answered it, so I'm going to start the timer. And then I'm going to take a deep breath and exhale. Just so the wiser part of me and not the ego is tempted to answer this question. The question is, should I leave my retail job because I feel so anxious dealing with the public? Should I leave my retail job because I feel so anxious dealing with the public? That's a really good question. So what we have in it is someone who's pondering whether or not they should leave their job. And why should they feel that? Because they feel uncomfortable in it. They are anxious dealing with, they specifically say, dealing with the public. So there's something about their job that they feel is causing them to be anxious. And because of that, they feel they should make some life changes. Very common question, and I'm sure a lot of people feel that sometimes. People who work in retail have to deal with the public all the time, and the public's not always nice. The public come in with their own unconscious tendencies and their own, problems from the day and vent out on people who are least deserving sometimes, only because they feel that it is an opportunity to do so. So if you're working the retail and you tend to be a little bit sensitive to the opinions of others, it can be definitely an anxiety-producing situation. I said an anxiety-producing situation. This is where I want to stop right now. It is not the situation that is causing the anxiety, okay? The anxiety is within. It is being triggered possibly by this reaction that comes from dealing with the public. But the public or the job is not causing the anxiety. And I think that is so important that we stress that right away. It is not the life situation we are in that causes us our sense of stress, fear, anxiety, worry, depression, or even happiness and joy and bliss. It is what is already within us. So if our emotions are low, with low energy emotions, like anxiety, like depression, like despair, like hopelessness, like anger, frustration, those fall below what the Course in Miracles we refer to as into the fear spectrum of emotions, all under the big title of fear. Anything else is under the big title of love, and that tends to bring the energy levels up. So when a person is at the point in their life where they're questioning if what they're doing, if they should change what they're doing, if they should make a fairly drastic life change based on the anxiety they're feeling, then we have to look at why they're feeling anxious, not what they should do about it. And that is the key thing in this question that I pick up anyway. Why do you feel anxious? We tend to blame life for causing us our suffering, but life doesn't cause suffering. There is absolutely no personal vendetta in life. Life is just doing what life does, what it's been doing for billions of years, right? And when we look at karma, it's cause and effect. There's one cause leads to an effect, that effect leads to another cause, and another effect, and another cause, and just ripples out through eternity, this karmic effect or karmic accumulation. What actions we take will have ripple effects for other people, right? But what we're experiencing inside is not what life is doing. It's our reaction to what life is doing. We may not like dealing with the public for good reason, and that's not a judgment. We just may not like dealing with the public. And the reason why, we have to ask, why don't I like dealing with the public? For some reason, the public triggers something within me that's already there, probably repressed or stuffed inside in a great big box of samskara, based on some past experience I've had dealing with people in the past. And when I deal with the public now, whatever they say or do, or the thought of what they might say or do, because anxiety is often an anticipated type of an anticipation of what life will give us rather than what life is actually giving us, right? So here we are worrying about what the public might say, and that is triggering this I'm going to call it brokenness, or this mess inside the samskara box that we ourselves have put there somewhere in the past, whether we did it consciously or unconsciously through suppression or repression. We pushed it down in the past because it was too uncomfortable to deal with. So we have the samskara blockage. And what dealing with the public does now, as I work in my retail job, is it triggers that. So all this old wounding or this old mess comes up to the surface, and the memory and all the associated emotional energy attached to it, the psychological energy attached to it, the core belief attached to it. For example, I'm not good enough, people are going to reject me, people aren't going to like me. All comes up, and it's very painful to deal with. And so what do? So we start to feel this anxiety. And anxiety is telling us that we have to do something. Anxiety is activation of the fight or flight response. The sympathetic nervous system has somehow been triggered. The amygdala, that part of our primal part of our brain that signals that there's a lion coming across the Serengeti plains at us, has been triggered, and it has triggered the sympathetic nervous system to take action. And so we have all this adrenaline and cortisol and norepinephrine and whatever else coming up into our systems, creating the sense that I got to get my muscles ready to fight or flight, my pupils are dilated, I'm tense, my heart is beating fast, and the sense of doom and gloom that comes with this activation of the sympathetic nervous system, this danger signal, is activated. So we want to run or do something about this. We want to fight or flight or do something about the situation. And in this person's case, they want to flee. They want the flight. Should I leave my job? Should I escape this constant activation of my sympathetic nervous system based on what my mind is telling me about the situation? And it's telling you, be careful. You've had that happen before in the past. You don't want people to reject you. So maybe, you're in a situation where they potentially could. So maybe you want to leave. And that is causing the anxiety, that sense of inner restlessness, that sense of worry about what might happen. And anxiety can become so great. It can be great fear and terror, or it can be mild forms of just underlying anxiety. But anxiety is fear, and fear is fear, and it is one of those things the mind does. Our old mind, the primal mind, the mind that is still part of our biological evolution, the amygdala, is there to tell us when our bodies are in danger. But being and working in public doesn't necessarily mean your body's in constant danger, but you're acting the same way as it would because of this firing of the adrenaline and cortisol, because of what your mind is saying, the danger signals you're getting. So you might say, well, I want to run. That's constant. You do that for a period of time. You're exhausted. Anxiety is terrible to deal with. It's a very real feeling, and it's so challenging. But what we do that makes the anxiety worse in most cases is we avoid the situation that causes that fear reaction. We're avoiding something that's already feeling what's already stuffed inside us based on the fear reaction. So we keep putting stuff on top of it. Things come in, I don't want to deal with that. When we push away and say, I don't want that in my life, as we tend to do with experiences that cause anxiety, we're not pushing them out, we're pushing them in. All reactions, all reality will come in through our five senses. But we get to a point where we say, no, you're getting too close to my tender spots, you're getting too close to my comfort zone, so you can't go any further. And when we do that, we end up pushing it down into these samskara blockages, these big knots of twisted emotional energy that we just feel like we can't handle. So this person, what I would suggest this person do, and I am no expert by any means, get help for anxiety, for sure, from a professional, not from me, but from a professional. And then begin to look at your anxiety. Instead of saying, should I leave my job, or what should I do about my anxiety? Start asking the questions that will lead to a deeper answers and deeper healing. Not right away. It will take time. You're not going to get the immediate sense of relief you would get if you run away and quit your job. But I guarantee doing so, the next job you have, even if it's not in retail, that anxiety will raise its ugly head, because you've stuffed it down here and something else is going to trigger that and it's going to come up. So instead of running, start asking, why do I feel anxious? And in those anxiety situations, develop some skills. Develop what Michael Singer says is the most important technique for handling anything in life to prevent us from resisting life, and that is to relax into what is. And of course, you're not going to be able to do that right away, but there are techniques you can do when you're not feeling so anxious that will help you to build on these relaxing skills, like yoga, for one thing. Hatha yoga is a wonderful way to help train us to relax, so that we're relaxing on the mat when we're not feeling anxious is one thing, but we take that practice with us into these anxiety-provoking situations and start using that relaxation then. We can train ourselves in progressive muscle relaxation, which is a way of just tensing and relaxing muscle groups so we know the distinction between what it feels like to be anxious and what it feels like to be relaxed. And eventually we can train ourselves so much that just one cue word we'll notice when we're starting to get anxious right away. We can use a cue word and we can counter that. We can go from sympathetic mode stimulation to parasympathetic, which is the relaxation and digesting that takes place when we're relaxed, just with a cue word. And progressive muscle relaxation helps us to identify what it feels like to be relaxed, but it also helps us to identify what it feels like to be tense, because sometimes we don't even realize we're tense. We don't even realize how we're holding on to chronic or acute stress in our bodies, and what that contrast would be like, that relief that would come with relaxing those muscles that we've been holding all the tension in. So PMR is a good thing too. Mindfulness and meditation, obviously, the more we practice those, we get closer into our higher center, our deeper center, our calm center, and then the more access we'll have to that center, how it will be easier to access that center in the time of acute stress or anxiety. And breathing, taking a deep breath and breathing out, just helps bring us back to our center. I used to teach nursing students, and I used to teach them the 3 B's when dealing with a crisis situation in nursing, and there's a lot of crisis situations obviously in nursing. So I'd always say, remember your 3 B's: back, breathe, begin. So the first one is step back mentally away from that stress and that anxiety. So you're recognizing you're feeling anxious when you're in public with these people. Step back and recognize it from a distance. It makes it so much easier to deal with. When you create a little distance, become the objective observer again, the witness consciousness again, and you can look at what the mind is doing, look at how you're responding, what the body's doing at a distance. So you step back, look at it clearly, what's happening here, and then you start to realize there are no mother lions surrounding you, and you're not in the midst of the Serengeti about to be eaten. It's just a customer standing in front of you, right? So you can put it back into perspective. Then take a breath. By taking a breath, we access that center. And meditation and mindfulness, especially if it's breath awareness meditation, will help us to train us to get back to the center of who we are with every breath that we take. So take a deep breath. and get that clarity that you need. And then begin again. Instead of running, begin again. You're going to fall, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to get anxious, and it's not going to go away right away. But the more we're committed to confronting the why of our anxiety rather than running from it, the better off we'll be in the long run. Because I guarantee you, leave your job. I'm not telling you not to leave your job, and there's situations where you should leave your job. Talk that over with your professional or someone you love. But the more we leave our jobs, the more we run from that which is distressing us on the inside, blaming it instead of the mess we have inside, we're just going to bring it with us to the next situation. So let's just turn around and face the problem at the root and deal with it from there. Well, as you can tell, my timer has gone off. I hope that helped to answer your question to some degree. Thank you so much for joining me on this day of many questions. And have a wonderful day. Namaste.